Hi, Michelle, I made it.
Glad to hear it. I had some like notes and question marks to write in some contingencies, but I can cross them out.
Oh my gosh, the rush to do it. I thought it would be less stressful to make it, but
Take
You
a
made
breather
it.
for
That's the
next
important
1
thing.
minute.
okay. I know I'm trying to do my yoga breaths. So I'm rushed. Okay, gonna mute myself.
Thank you, moderators. How did the city council session go?
I think it went well. Liam,
Yeah.
Arish, what do you think?
I think it went well as well.
Yeah, I feel like it went well. I'm looking forward to a great one for this next hour or two.
You two are great. Keep up the good work. I think we're still waiting for one candidate. Hopefully she'll join us shortly.
Okay. All right.
Ready?
But everything.
Heather or Justin, could you text her? I wonder if she's using the wrong link. I made that mistake first.
You did. I'm texting her real quick.
Thanks, folks. There we go. All right. I think everyone that's coming is here. So welcome, everyone. I'm Michelle Colpine, and I've lived in Wyoming for a couple years now over on Charles Street. I'm currently a visiting assistant professor at Miami University Hamilton in the Department of Interdisciplinary and Communication Studies, where I teach a whole range of classes in communication to undergrads right now. I'm moderating tonight's forum with two current Wyoming high school students, Arish and Liam, who I've been very lucky to get to know through their various leadership and organizing roles in the community over the last year or two. We were invited to moderate tonight on behalf of WINS, the Wyoming Inclusion Neighborhood Diversity Support, which is a group committed to community, accountability, transparency, and inclusion in Wyoming. I'm very excited about the opportunity this forum provides to young people in our community to engage with local candidates, because who is more directly affected by our school systems than the students attending them? Many of our students will be voting for the first time this election cycle, or they might have to wait till the next one, but I'm sure they'll be active voters and they're already very engaged citizens. So tonight, we welcome 4 of our current school board candidates who are running among several others for 3 available seats on the school board on November 2nd. In the interest of time, I will let them introduce themselves as I call on them during the opening question. Our student moderators have developed questions ahead of time, and candidates have been given discussion topics that they will engage through tonight's questions. Liam and Arish will ask these predetermined questions to our candidates, and I will call on each candidate in random order to answer each question. Candidates will be given 1 minute to answer most of the questions, but because we only have 4 candidates here, we thought we'd maybe give you 2 for the opening question and the closing question. So you can talk about yourselves and tell us a little more about you. Whoa, throwing you a curveball. So we don't have space for direct audience participation tonight. There's no chat box. Attendees are separate from panelists in terms of participation. We appreciate that you're here and encourage you to reach out to both the candidates who are present tonight and those who aren't, if you have any pressing questions or concerns in terms of follow-up. So with that, Liam, would you like to get us started?
Thank you, Dr. Colpine. Hello, everyone. My name is Liam, and I'm a student here at Wyoming High School. We've had several forums and surveys through the campaign process so far. What is something that people may not know about you as a person or candidate that you would like to share with us today?
All right, y'all, we'll give you a full 2 minutes for the opening question. Kara, do you want to start us off?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Dr. Colpine and Liam and Arish and all the students who participated to have us here tonight. It's great to be here and have a chance to have a conversation. And answering something about me that people don't know, we probably all feel a little bit at this point like, wow, is the community sick of knowing, hearing from us? But I was thinking a little bit about the role of education for me personally. And I'm not sure if people know just how central to my life it has been. I was raised by a public school elementary teacher and then principal and then assistant superintendent. And I was always really proud of my mom, even as a little kid. And a lot of our discussions around the dinner table centered on education. I then went to the University of Virginia, a public university, where I fell in love with English language, the English literature, and all the ways that we humans connect and communicate with one another. And then most of my career has been in higher education communications, first at the University of Richmond, and then at the Medical College of Virginia at the School of Medicine. And in that field of development and alumni relations and communications, I was to say, I mean, it really is an understatement to say that I was impacted on a daily basis by stories, just incredible stories of how education impacted our alumni, students, and faculty. So I don't know if I'm nearing 2 minutes or not. I was on the timing for 1 minute, but I think as a volunteer among the 3 buildings in our district, one of the reasons that I ran for the Board of Education in the first place was I thought that would be a great experience to bring, having been a volunteer in all 3 buildings. But more than anything, it gave me appreciation for the variety of students we have in our own district and what teachers do on a daily basis. And I'm excited to take all of that, combined with 4 years of experience on the board, to continue to serve our community. Thanks.
Sarah. All right, next up, Michael. I'll give you like a thumbs up.
Okay, that sounds good. So my name is Michael Evans. The part about me that people already know is that I'm a professor of family, school, and community engagement at Miami University. I think what people don't know is just to what extent I am a huge education nerd. And so as soon as I found out that I was running for school board, I have started attending webinars. And I found that even though I kind of live and breathe this stuff every day through my career, there's always so much more to learn. So over the summer, I took some webinars through Bricker and Eckler, it's this law firm. They do these kind of like summer policy updates. And I'm learning about how the policy is really just changing and the court cases are changing from month to month and how important it is to know that guidance. Through a Facebook post, a little dangerous, but through a Facebook post, I got turned on to K-12 cybersecurity. So I didn't know that school districts around the country were being held ransom for their data. And so I went and I attended a Department of Homeland Security webinar on cybersecurity and how hard it is to have cybersecurity when you've given out laptops to 2,000 students in a district who are taking the laptops home, right? So that can be really challenging. Last week, I was honored to attend a webinar sponsored by Sherrod Brown. I was focused on the mental health crisis among Black girls. And so I am constantly trying to learn more and more about education, regardless of the outcome of this election. I am a dyed-in-the-wool education nerd, and so that's something maybe people don't know about me.
Thank you. Justin.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having this forum. I really appreciate it. So Justin Buckner, just a little bit about me for our students. Thank you guys. I was once you, grew up here in Wyoming, graduated from Wyoming High School. So I never had a chance to host a forum. So that's a first for you guys. So congratulations on doing that. I'm a Princeton University grad, econ major, spent a lot of time at Procter & Gamble, volunteered a ton within the city of Wyoming, which I love. A couple interesting things about me. I'll talk about while I was at P&G, I had the opportunity to be an expat in Vietnam and in India. And my family and I, we packed up and moved to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And a couple interesting things about that. My son got to attend the Australian International School while we lived in Vietnam. And when we lived in India, he got to attend the American School of Bombay. So I thought that was really interesting to be able to experience these international schools and bringing some of that back. A couple of personal things for me, and I'll tell you the story if you see me on the street, but I was personally invited by a Buddhist monk to attend a ceremony and got to have a meal with he and his fellow monks in their temple. That's a long, interesting story. And then when we lived in India, India is very well known for lots of things, but Bollywood is one of those interesting things. So I have personally done voiceovers in 2 Indian Bollywood movies. So those are a couple of little known facts about me. I can tell you the stories, they're great stories, but I'm an HR professional, bring lots of experience to Wyoming. I'm really looking forward to continuing being on the board. I got appointed in June. And I'm really looking forward to answering these questions and just engaging with you guys tonight.
Thank you. And last but not least, Heather.
Hi, so I am Heather Yee. And again, like everyone else, thank you so much for doing this. And what an honor to have students ask us some questions. And I love the engagement that I wish I would have had as much when I was 18 and becoming a new voter. So that step is wonderful. So I appreciate the time for you guys to do this. Like Kara said, I think all of us are talking so much about ourselves, so some of it may be repetitive and I'll try to come up with something new, but I moved around a few different times growing up. So I got to experience private school when I was younger, but I moved to Hudson, Ohio when I was in 6th grade. So I'm a public school graduate and got to experience that. And then I came down here to Cincinnati to study education at Xavier University. So I got my degrees in elementary and special education from XU. And during that, my experience took me to Vermont School to do my student teaching in both realms for both elementary and special ed. And then that led us with my family when we had children to realize that Wyoming was a place where we really wanted to be. For my career, I actually worked in many jobs during college to pay for college. So I got to work at a place that supported adults with developmental disabilities. And when I graduated, I was offered a position there, which was through a grant. And I had the experience to oversee 13 different people. But the main bit was supporting adults with disabilities all throughout Cincinnati in different aspects. And one of the things about me that I loved, that I got to be an ongoing learner, was I supported a gentleman who was both deaf and blind. So I would take him out into the community, try to help individuals learn sign language and also learn tactile sign language. So how to communicate, how to help him kind of figure out what he wanted to do and how to educate others on his life and what that looked like. So that's I guess a unique bit about me. And like Michael said, I just love ongoing learning. I think when we keep challenging ourselves to find something as we get older is really something that excites me. And I came on the board for the first time 4 years ago, and I've learned an extraordinary amount in that time. So thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for a great round of introductions and fun facts. Arish, do you have our first 1-minute response question?
Thank you, Dr. Kolpian. We as students would feel empowered in having a direct line of communication with the school board, who shapes policies that directly affect our everyday lives, and hope that board members would value us as agentic citizens of our communities and schools. How will you better engage with students' demands and engage communication?
All right. Michael, you want to start us off?
Sure, no problem. So 3 ideas for you. So one is I did a little bit of research. I found in Arlington, Virginia, they're holding open school board office hours. So I thought that would be a really good idea, using something like Windows Teams or something like that, at least during the course of the pandemic, where you could have a board member be available every week to connect with students in the high school. When we're not in the pandemic, maybe we could use the new Center for Research and Innovation, or we can just, have an hour in the cafeteria or something like that. I was also thinking that many of the people on the here today, like we've all served on the Citizens Advisory Committee. And what if we had a model of that? What if we had a student version of the Citizens Advisory Committee? So we have a collective of students who are participating in ongoing projects with the district. I think that would go a long way in terms of opening up dialogue. And then finally, there's something at the University of Washington that I really like. It's called collaborative design circles. And so with the collaborative design circle, the idea is to surface equity issues. And so there's shared you bring together a team of stakeholders to look at data, you surface those issues, and you try and workshop solutions together. So I thought those are 3 different ideas that we might use.
Thanks. Justin?
Thank you. I think one way to really engage students is just to invite students to attend our board meetings. I think we could have students that could be assigned to cover the board, cover the topics coming from the board, sit with our board. We've done things like that in the past where students could ask questions of the board. I think that's one thing. Another thing is actually having some of us maybe come into the classes and just talk about what a board does. Just as I've been on the campaign trail and just kind of joining the board, understanding what a board member does is a little bit of a black box unless you really ask the question and you get into it. And I think that could be a really interesting topic to cover. In addition to hearing from you could be through student government, through the other organizations, what are some of the needs or concerns that students have that we can take to the board and build into. It could be part of the CAC, as Mike said, it could be part of our planning that we've got regularly for the board. But I think really listening to our students and creating an avenue for them for you guys to let us know what's going on and what's on your mind. We already do a student survey for graduating seniors, but I think maybe we could do something a little bit more in the moment where students can give their voices a little bit more real time.
Thanks. Heather?
I'm gonna try to diversify too what the gentleman already said. So the listening sessions have been important. We've realized same on the campaign trail, we've been trying to do like some coffees, let's say, and maybe those hours would be different. So I guess I just want to make sure we also know that we want, as even current serving board members, that we are always available, like that our emails and our phone numbers are listed on the website and that people can have a direct line to us at any time. And then if it is something that it's not in our purview to really take care of, we will redirect you. That hopes that our role is also putting the proper people in place to get you like policies or procedures or something that students would really be concerned about, that would kind of come back to, wouldn't that be great to be talked about in your government class or from student council if people are a part of that. So to really look at what is wanted from the students, to be able to hear you, to be able to have some action steps of what that looks like. Our role is to also have the right people in place where students would feel supported, and that we would then be that final step, I guess, if that makes sense. So to know that we are always fully available and willing to listen and hear you, and if it's not something that we can do directly, we would send you back to those people that would be your best bet to get you the results you need.
Thank you. And Kara?
Great. These are all wonderful ideas. I love hearing them. I think as we go through the campaign, even though I've done this one other time and I've been on the board for 4 years, I realize every day you never stop learning of new ways that you can engage people. And I thought, you know, a board really is about communication and listening, really learning as much as we can. That's why you see us a lot at school events. We go to different meetings of Student Achievement Committee, Finance Committee. We're learning all the time as much as we can about the district. And sometimes that is not as obvious probably to students, given our role, as really it could be. And I think right from the get-go, especially seeing this enthusiasm from the students in the process, we are elected officials. To start off the school year visiting a government classroom or assembly or a student council meeting, having one, you know, the board president or a designated person from the board come and just take questions from you guys, I think would be a great way to kick off the year, get kids engaged, get kids thinking in their government classes about local politics and local elections and how it really does matter to the everyday of the student. But really, to reiterate too what Heather said, our job is to hire people who value and will center the student experience. The superintendent then hires the principal. And I think I'm going to say one more thing. And in doing that, we need to listen to all our stakeholders. And I want to remind students, you are our stakeholders. You are probably our most important stakeholders. So as much as we can involve you in all of those conversations, please come out. We will reach out to you. We have strategic planning coming up, and we want to make you part of those conversations. Thanks.
Thanks, folks. Liam, do you have our next question?
Thank you, Dr. Colpin. In response to the student body recently calling for more training and programming to reduce sexual assault and harassment and promote a culture of education, we recently had a rather unsatisfactory school program that we feel didn't adequately address our needs and concerns. Additionally, we had a student-led committee that focused on preventing discrimination and promoting many of the DEI goals that was ended last year. As a board member, how would you shape plans and policies that better support student-led initiatives in our schools? And could you please give an example of what that support looks like?
Thanks. So maybe a more direct or applied intervention and version of our last question. Justin, will you start us off?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that we could do is really just listening to that feedback that we got from our students. You know, there have been interventions, you know, over the past year, you know, the formation of the ACES group and others to really help us think about what DEI looks like from a student experience and helping you guys have a conversation about DEI. You know, I think one big thing that, you know, from a policy or a board or perspective is really take these things seriously and not take them off the table of what we want to bring to the schools. I mean, we're about creating an environment for belonging and inclusion. And if our students have ideas, suggestions of what we can do, you know, we want to add that to the work that's already going. We've got a belonging and inclusion collaborative that is really looking at these things and to keep these alive within our schools. And I really think that, you know, bringing some of those programs back into the schools is one direct way that we can influence and really make sure that every student at Wyoming, even from when I was there to when you guys are here now, that every student at Wyoming feels that they as individuals are welcome and they belong to our schools.
Thank you. Heather?
So to kind of follow up with similar things to what Justin was saying is, I love that it is about how we can take better action steps, I guess. So it really does come back to, number one, your feedback. So sometimes what we think might be in place as the board or administrators or teachers is not something that you all are living every day. So it really is to hear from you, to adapt to that, to really look at what where we could pivot and where we can always be better, which is something we're really always looking for. So we do value that experience, and knowing that student voice and your experience in your everyday is very important. And then as the board, I see what my function has been for the past 4 years is that since I'm not the direct person to what's happening in the classroom, it is a lot of questions from us and a lot of supportive player, I guess, from us, and to make sure if we've done some different research that we're not hearing. So what I hear from you is, I know that for us, one of the main goals is climate and culture, and it is to make sure that students do feel engaged. So sometimes if it's what we don't think is working, I guess an action step would be to modify that to make sure it is something that would engage you and make you feel like everyone does belong and feel valued.
Thanks, Heather. Kara?
Yeah, great. So first of all, I am a parent of a high schooler. I've actually been a parent of high schoolers since 2013. So I have, I guess, gone along, albeit as a mom, on the journey of high schoolers and seen a lot of things change, seen different principals come and go. And I know that when we hired Tim Weber, it was after a lot of listening to the community. And one of the things that was loud and clear was we needed someone that prioritized the student experience, focused on relationship building. The same when we hired James Stallings. There were community sessions, conversations with students, as well as teachers and other community members on, again, someone that would center the student experience and value student voice. And I know with the sexual assault program, when things like this happen that aren't satisfying, I think it's important that students feel, we have a new leader, that they feel and know the good intention of that leader and be able to go back to the leader and say, how, the confidence, and if we're working on that relationship building, students should be able to feel they can go to their counselors, to the principal, and say, hey, that was kind of a bust. What can we do? How can we make it better? This is the feedback we've gotten. And our goal through Belonging Inclusion Collaborative, through hiring great people, is that you as students will know that you are valued, and that if something isn't great, we can work together to make it better. As the board, hiring the superintendent, hiring the treasurer, and then indicating and listening to the community, hearing what they value, is what we want to see in place.
Thanks, Kara. And finally, Michael.
Yeah. So, I have twins in the 8th grade, and then I have a 4th grader. So I am not as up on what is happening in the high school. So I'll be straightforward about that. But what I would say is that sometimes schools and districts, when they enact listening or communication, it's almost as like a consumer satisfaction type of interaction. And so sometimes there's listening going on, but sometimes people still don't feel like they're heard. And so I think what I've observed is that in terms of best practices, trying to focus on modes of communication that emphasize discourse, and so that there's an exchange of ideas, that it's not just putting up the white paper and scribbling stuff up with the marker, but that you're actually having an exchange of ideas around data, that can be really powerful. And so sometimes that can surface new ideas by virtue of entering into that conversation, and hopefully lead to better outcomes. And then just to piggyback on what Kara was saying, I also do think that if you're not happy or satisfied with something, please continue to talk to the administration. I think that they've made some really great hires over the past few years, and so please don't give up if you're still kind of seeking to get more information in that area.
Thanks, folks. Arish, do you have our next question for us?
Thank you, Dr. Kolpian. If elected, how will you work to create and maintain transparency among the school board and the wider Wyoming community? And what specific communication strategies and tools will you use to do so? In other words, how do you plan on keeping the Wyoming community tapped into the work you are doing?
I love that one. I'm a communication professor, and that's a communication question. Heather, will you start us off?
Sure thing. So I will tell you that I feel like in every election, communication and transparency is always a hot topic, because I think for all of us, we're continually evolving on proper ways to communicate, and then something changes. So again, on the campaign trail, it is great for all of us. We're talking about, we continually are saying, where can we be better so that people know what we're doing? So part of what we talk about is how much information is on our website and accessible. How much are we maybe emailing directly to people? If people are empty nesters or actually don't have any students in the district but want to know, what is that balance and how do we get that information to them? So the specific ways we're doing it is, we've talked about, we've added and changed some things that are available on our website. Like if you do not have a primary student, but you want to know what's happening in the primary schools, those links are now on the website, so you know where to find that, so you can hear what's happening. We are looking at how we can maybe post something monthly, or we've talked about different ways that like a school board newsletter where some specific things. And Dr. Kolpian, I see your thumb up, so thank you.
Thanks. It's not as hard of a cutoff since we have a little wiggle room in this one, but a soft gesture to time. Kara?
Yeah. Okay. There aren't too many silver linings of the pandemic, but I think in terms of communication and transparency, one thing we realized was people, I don't know if enjoying is the right word, but they were definitely, there was value in recording the meetings. And I think that helps people be more engaged. It helps citizens know who to call. It helps citizens know the role of the board. So that is something we're still working with, like technically the best way to do it. And so we are planning to continue that. One thing that we've done in the last few years through our Citizens Advisory Committee, as that group has gotten more project oriented, there have been some really great projects. One of them was a graduate survey where we asked about the student experience, and really we're learning a lot that, okay, not all of our graduates, not all of our students are having the same experience going through the schools. And each of those studies, or I should say most of those studies, are up on the website to view. And I think we will be continuing to look for more ways to invite people in, as opposed to just expecting them to go to the website if they want to know something.
Thanks. Michael?
Okay, so a few years ago, a colleague of mine, Dr. Andy Saltz, and I, we were researching the opt-out movement. So this is when parents were intentionally not having their kids participate in standardized testing. So we surveyed 200 parents, we interviewed around 20 of them. And what we surfaced is that in districts where there is a communication void, so where they weren't getting out there with their messaging, that's where misinformation was most likely to take root and start to spread rapidly. So in August of this year, in an issue of the Ohio School Board Journal, they actually had an article focused on communication. And the big overarching theme is that it's really important for districts to, if anything, to over communicate. So they need to be out there pushing their message. And so for me, a good example of this is what's going on right now in our communities in Ohio with CRT. So there's a lot of information out there about critical race theory. And I think that we've seen some good examples around the state of ways to react to that. Chagrin Falls has a frequently asked question page that they're constantly updating. I think that's really handy for people to be able to see. Sharing proactively what's going on with your community, with your training, with your teachers. I think that that's very helpful. And then I think it's important to correct myths before they spin out of control. And so, and that requires being constantly on message. And just one quick one I have to share. I've heard while I was canvassing that from many people that DEI, they're worried that it's pushing out and now we're not teaching science, math, and technology. That is not true. We can do both. And so those are the types of things though that start to spread through the community and that we need to address in real time.
Thanks, Michael. Justin?
I'd also say that in terms of communicating and over communicating, we need to make sure that what we're communicating is clearly understood by people. So if the information that we're presenting isn't understood, we can communicate it multiple times, but our folks still won't get it. So I think that's one thing, to make sure that what we're communicating is clearly understood by people, taking advantage of existing channels that are out there so that we're not shooting multiple things off in different areas. I think another thing, just being on the campaign trail and being on school board for the past several months, is as themes come up, whether it's just talking with people or via emails that we might receive, if there are key themes that present themselves, say, hey, this is a key theme, let's get this information out so that we can clearly get it out to all the right channels, so we can clearly communicate the right point of view, or at least the board's point of view, the district's point of view, so that folks have the story. So it's not just a one-on-one conversation, but it's among the district. Because a lot of times if you hear some constant themes that are coming up, chances are others have that same question.
Thanks, everyone. Liam, do you have our next question for us?
Thank you, Dr. Colpine. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated mental health issues, especially for our most vulnerable students. What is your plan to ensure that students will have adequate resources to holistically succeed throughout their time in Wyoming City schools, and that those resources are effectively communicated to students and parents?
Thanks, Liam. Justin, you want to start us off?
A couple things related to mental health is really about understanding where we are, right? Understanding where we are from a mental health perspective, helping parents understand where their students are, where they are. COVID has been hit hard. I'm in HR. I've seen that, the pandemic and the impacts, understanding where they are, and then really from there, what interventions can we take to help our students. We've got student surveys to help them identify where they are from a mental health perspective. I think the other thing is, from a COVID perspective, is moving forward, mental health, making sure that we're able to have a conversation and we destigmatize the topic so that we can move forward and we can have an open dialogue about it, so that we all can continue to heal.
Thank you. Heather?
So just as you were stating, this was a topic that we were talking about pre-pandemic, and then obviously the pandemic did expose the higher rates and needs of mental health. And I will keep saying that, tapping on to what Justin said, I think us as adults being role models and willing to listen and engage and help with resources. Part of what I love that we knew that this was something that we wanted to talk about, make sure parents knew resources and students. Two of the things, one was last week we had Dr. Dalton come, and there was a parent partnership. And I was able to attend for the teachers aspect of that, but to really hear some resources and ideas of how to move forward, and for parents and students, how we could support one another, and teachers, is one that's effective that I know that we would love to continue. The other are in the community conversations. It's on belonging, and even our CAC study on bullying. Some of those are just tangible steps that we know are what we really want to get out to parents on how we can support our students, and to the students so that they know the availability of beyond counselors, that we do have counselors, but when your counselor, maybe you need more, is how can we also provide even more resources so that you know you always have at least one adult that you can know and trust in the building, is something that's very important to us all the way up to the school board. So it's figuring out what that looks like for each individual student and how we can support moving forward.
Thank you. Kara.
Yeah. So not to be repetitive with Justin and Heather, I would just like to add, obviously this is a much talked about national trend, but we know this is hitting hard in Wyoming as well. And when I've been out and about talking to folks, I hear some concern about social and emotional learning. Why are you teaching kindness? Why spend time on empathy and these sorts of things? But we have strong, following our understanding of mental health and social emotional learning across the country in education, there is more and more realization of the importance of social emotional learning at the primary level, at the middle level, and even going into high school. But at the primary and middle level, this is not like an additional class. These are things that can be woven throughout the curriculum. And really, instead of subtracting from academics, I would contend that it enhances it. It addresses the whole child, which is something that we are known for in Wyoming. And at the high school level, I am super excited about the flex time. I know it's just getting started. It may mean a study hall for some people, but it may mean more. And I know for certain students, they're talking about different programming that can happen in that flex time. And I think this is a great opportunity for students to collaborate with the administration to make that something really helpful to students' mental health and to take off the pressure and really enhance overall learning.
Thanks, Kara. Michael?
Yeah, well, thank you for this. This is a great question. So on the Wyoming website, you can actually find a mental health kind of report card for the district. And so it's interesting that you surfaced one of the primary issues. So in terms of barriers to care, it's cost, followed by parent education. So this is a really important question. I want to focus in specifically on, you talked about effectively communicating not just to parents, but to students. So for me, to go back to an earlier answer, that's where something like a student advisory committee could really come in handy. Because I know as a college professor, like I send my students emails, and because I'm on email all day, I think they read email, and they don't. Like this is not how they communicate. Michelle's not in her head in agreement, right? And so, sometimes as adults, like we're trying to shape messages and we're trying to communicate these important things and resources that we have, but we're not the most effective communicators because we don't have the insights. We're not utilizing the insights of the students. So I think using some sort of mechanism where students could help us think about ways to craft messages that would connect with their peers, I think that would be a really effective way to raise awareness of this.
Thank you. All right, I think Arish is ready to bring us home with the last question. For this wrap up, we'll give you another 2 minutes and maybe some wiggle room. We've got a little time to play with. So Arish, will you bring us home?
Thank you, Dr. Colpian. Last minute, is there anything else you'd like Wyoming to know before they vote?
Michael.
I'm back. Okay, so this is probably the last biggest audience I'll have an opportunity to address. And I just want to acknowledge that I understand that the last few months have been pretty painful. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, and now we find ourselves at school board meetings and we have to have police officers present. And so I think for many of this is not the Wyoming, it doesn't feel like the Wyoming that we thought that we knew. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of misinformation being spread in the community. There's a lot of like fiery rhetoric going on. And I think that this is really, I think it's a shame because I do think that we need more political engagement in our schools, in the district. It's interesting, only in the 2017 election and this election do we have opposition for the board seats. So since 2010, everybody else has run unopposed. And I don't necessarily think that's healthy for the district. I think it's helpful to have conversations if they're productive and people are actually in conversation with one another. And so I understand that many people feel that they are facing a dilemma, to name the elephant in the room, or that people feel that they kind of have to choose sides in this election. And so I just want to say that I understand this dilemma, and all I can say is that I hope everybody follows their heart. I know a lot of people in the community, and I know that everybody wants what's best for their kids. And so I believe that everybody wants what's best for Wyoming public schools. And so I want you to elect the leaders that you think are going to best bring our community together. And I trust that Wyoming is going to make the right decision.
Thank you. Kara?
Yeah. I think we're just a few days before the election. And as we near the end, first of all, I want to say, if you have already voted for me or you support me, I thank you. Honestly, hearing from strangers, the support is humbling, and it just inspires me to want to keep really working hard for a district and a community that I love very much. If you don't support me, I will still work really hard for you too and your kids. If you're undecided, I ask you to consider, yes, we are neighbors, we know each other, but being on a board is not just about, they're a nice person, they've been a good volunteer, I could call them up on the phone if I have a problem. That is part of it. But there are different directional views that, and I'm sorry that the opposing opinion is not here tonight to share with us, but I invite you to look at each of our websites as well as theirs, which is protectwyomingschools.com. And I went on that today to try to understand a little better where they were coming from. And it is quite different to what even each of the four of us would offer. I think about the argument of taking politics out of the curriculum. And what does that mean when you are engaging in a very partisan effort? These votes, your vote really matters, and to consider how you align in the direction that you want our schools to go is really important. A board that is aligned in trust, supporting a superintendent recently hired with lots of input from all our stakeholders. We have that now, and there is a lot of work to be done. And I believe that we can continue supporting Tim Weber. And I believe if you support Tim Weber, you will support the current board in the direction that we are going. And things have been divisive. They don't have to be that way, but we do need to be informed citizens as we go to vote. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Kara. Justin.
Thank you for the question, and thanks for tonight, the evening. And I just want to say, echo what others have said. It's been a crazy election campaign season, but on the other hand, it's been great to get to meet people, talk with folks, and I just really appreciate the opportunities I've had to engage with folks. Like I said, I'm from Wyoming, but I've been away and I've been back, And it's just been great to continue to engage even among the craziness that we've had. You know, one of the biggest things for me is that we just go out and vote. This is a critical vote, just like every vote is critical. I really try and vote in every election, and vote for folks that you believe, and I believe I'm one of them, will listen, is pragmatic, has experience, not necessarily just on Wyoming's board, but experience with teams, experience with handling issues of people, of students, who can work with others, even if they've got different points of view. You know, school board also is supposed to be nonpartisan. I care about Wyoming. I'm from Wyoming. I moved my family back to Wyoming. I've got a 5th grader and a 2-year-old. And I really want us, once this is all said and done, regardless of what the outcome is, I want us to be able to move forward as one proud Wyoming. And I want us all to agree to that as a community. We may not all disagree, but we all agree, we all are here because we love the schools. We think we've got great schools, and we want the school to continue to keep that tradition of excellence. And we can do that. We can move forward as one proud Wyoming. I know we can do that. So vote on those things. Thank you.
Thanks. And Heather, the last word on the last word.
Thank you. So just to piggyback there on how Justin was ending is, I think we all agree that Wyoming is a wonderful place to be, but that we have some community healing to do. And what does that look like? How are we going to sit down at the table and have discussion and dialogue, and how important that will be moving forward regardless. That voting does matter, especially on a local level. Sometimes it's the difference of very few votes. So your engagement is appreciated and so valued. I just want to, I guess, reiterate that the role of the board, just since maybe we didn't get to say it as much, is 5 people who work together as one governing body. So it is important to have diversity of opinion and thought, but to be able to have respectful discussion and dialogue and come to consensus and agreement and move forward for all of our stakeholders to be great listeners. We're linked to the community. Our main role is overseeing the superintendent and treasurer, but also overseeing policy and our finances. I would say authenticity, forward thinking, being trustworthy are key ingredients to having a strong board, a well-functioning board who can support our leaders. The past 4 years has been wonderful serving all of you, and has been bumpy, but it's made me stronger, and it's made me more thoughtful, and it's made me more willing to continue to do the work. So thank you so much for just your time and your interest and your questions. And yeah, if you haven't already voted, vote November 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That's all we have for tonight. I don't think anyone will be mad about an extra 8 minutes on their Wednesday evening. Huge thank you to Kara Broderick, Justin Buckner, Michael Evans, and Heather Yee for joining us tonight, for their time and engagement with their constituents and our young folks. A big thanks to WINS and to all our other community organizations putting in the work, especially lately. And above all else, a huge thank you to Liam and Arish. They're the brains, I'm just the timekeeper. So I really appreciate everyone's involvement. And don't forget to vote next Tuesday, y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you.